Hi everybody, Tasha here from Pixie Mommy's Reborns. Welcome back to everybody new. Hello and welcome. I have something super cool to share with you all. It is another new bottle for those of you that do follow my channel. Please excuse the barking. It is my German Shepherd. I'll explain that in a minute. This bottle, oh my gosh, it's hot. It has hot liquid in it, hot distilled water. So it now is clear, and this is backwards, but it says Everyday Baby. I got this on Amazon, and it's in the color blueberry. When the bottle is cold, it goes the color blue of the cap. So hopefully you all will get to see that as I do the drink and wet feeding with Oscar, and as it cools down and the water goes down in the drink and wet, we should start seeing the bottle change back, so it's like a magic color changing bottle. And I also want to show you all and talk a bit about the drink and wet system in your silicone baby dolls. I get questions on the drink and wet from time to time, and I recently got a question, or it was a comment. It wasn't really a question, it was a comment. Someone commented that they had just bought a silicone doll. I don't know whether it was new from the artist or what, you know, the situation was, but they just said that they got a silicone doll, baby boy, with a drink and wet system, and that the drink and wet system didn't work, that the water pooled in the mouth, and that they were very, very disappointed. I did comment back. And I don't think there was a response. So I did let them know that, you know, that was something that they should contact the seller or the artist on. But there are different tips and tricks for the drink and wet systems for our silicone dolls, because they are more or less one of a kind works of art. They're sculpts. Every silicone pour is different. The drink and wet system is a tube that's down in the back of the throat that goes all the way through down to the baby's privates, and then the water will go through from there. So even on, you know, the same sculpt, the different pores of silicone, the way it's poured, or if the artist installs it afterwards, each install is going to be perhaps a little different. So one thing to keep in mind with the silicone dolls is you can't always feed them holding them completely upright like you would a real baby in that realistic look. Some of them, and I've noticed that Oscar's is more that way, or has become more that way over time, which it could just be because he's so flexible, and with his neck, like when he's sitting up, like the tube may be a little kinked in there somewhere, and that's just the way that it is. But if you lay them back a bit more and make sure that the neck is up more and laying back, it will help the water flow down. If you always use like hot water, not scalding hot, but quite warm, you know. You don't want it like burning to the touch or your touch, but you definitely want it to be warm. I'm just adding a little bit of KY jelly because Oscar does have, he's got a deep mouth, but he's got like a small mouth, so he definitely needs that lubrication so that we're not, you know, rubbing on the paint there. You do want to be careful when you're using the drink and wet system. You don't want to overdo it on that KY jelly, because that's something that can, you know, potentially clog your drink and wet system. So I'm going to just kind of give a little trial run here. Now, also, different bottles, different nipples have different flows. For Oscar and for all the drink and wet babies I've ever had, I have had to use a pointed sharp scissor and open the hole a little more. For some of them, I've actually had to cut like a tiny little bit of a chunk out. You want to go very slowly, you know, just give a tiny, tiny little snip and then try it, see how it works. If it's still not flowing good, give it a little more, because, you know, once you take away that part of the nipple, you can't really fix it, put it back. You'd have to, you know, get another nipple. So you want to be careful and go slow as you're doing that. But that is definitely a first tip. And you want to buy a bottle. I thought this one would be perfect for drink and wet feeding, because look at the nipple. So you have a nipple that will go inside the mouth, and then you have a nice little like bulb here for a good push for drink and wet. The thinner bottles with like the straight nipple, not so good. You don't really get like the friction, and you don't really get the pull. So I find the wide mouth bottles to work much better. And immediately when I got this bottle and I opened it up and stuff, and I saw the shape, I said, oh wow, I'm not gonna seal this to put milk in it. I'm gonna do this for the drink and wet feeding. And look how nice of, you know, you have a bulb on there to give a nice push. So, oh, and the bottle's starting to change already. I am going to get you all up closer here on Oscar so you can see what's going on here. So I have him laid back, almost in a laying down position, and his neck back a little bit like this, and giving it a nice push and tug, push and tug, push and tug. I may have to open this nipple more, because this, you all are watching me kind of experiment with this. You can still look pretty realistic, because a relaxed baby could be laying like this and being fed. But if you want that water flowing through, you can also lay them straight down on their back and make sure you've got a very open nipple. You know, you can use like a cheap bottle, open the nipple like to a big flow, and flow some, you know, hot water with a little bit of alcohol. I always put a little alcohol in my drink and wet bottles. I would say for 4 ounces of water, I might put like an ounce of alcohol. I put a good amount, because straight water, I feel any bit of it, I think the alcohol just, that's how I'm comfortable as a collector. And remember, you know, when you're doing things with your silicone doll, do it at your own risk. Always talk to an artist to make sure that that doll is equipped properly to take a full-size bottle, you know. And if your drink and wet is totally not working, you know, you definitely want to contact the artist. Or if you've purchased the doll in the second market and you've questioned, it's a question that you want to ask when you're purchasing a silicone doll, because the drink and wet system often adds value to the doll. It's more expensive to get the drink and wet system, like if you're buying a silicone kit and you're going to have it painted and stuff like that, and you get the options like armatures, drink and wet, stuff like that. Obviously the drink and wet is costing more money. It's usually an additional, I would say on an average, roughly an additional $500 just to have the drink and wet system put into a sculpt. Some sculpts have it, like, you know, Oscar was an edition baby by Claire Taylor, one of her small like special editions. And the mommy that ordered him, because the Dwayne sculpt was the last edition that Claire Taylor did as customs. So she offered everything, you know, she offered all the bells and whistles. And Oscar's first mommy that originally ordered him with all the extras. So drink and wet, armatures in the arms and legs, squishy tummy, you know, just all that stuff. A spine. Yeah, he has a spine. The only thing he doesn't have is a skull. But of course, by the time I got him, his armatures weren't working. And that's just, you know, the way that it goes. But as far as drinking wet, this is working terrific because it doesn't seem to be pooling in his mouth at all because I have him laid back. Because like I said, I have had issues previously, although I'm not really sure how the bottle is pretty full, but I don't know that if he's really getting a whole lot. I'm just gonna sit him up to see. And also, like, sitting them up and laying them back down, you know, moving the position can help the water flow through. He's really not getting much out of this, so I think I am going to snip. I'll try to show you all, but I'm going to try to snip a little bit more open on this and maybe take a tiny piece off so that don't want to do too much. So let's try that and see if that's a little bit more helpful for little Oscar here, because like the feeding is great. It's fun. You know, I'm sitting here feeding him and it looks like he's eating and everything, but nothing was really going down. Okay, now I'm seeing more bubbles. So and you know, sometimes like you can't just sit and do like you would role play, like say this was sealed and you just sit and do like a gentle, like you're feeding. That doesn't, you know, you really kind of gotta give it a push and a pull to get the water to come out, because don't forget that the silicone doll, it's not a baby. They're not sucking the fluid out. So you have to somehow get the water to be coming out of the bottle into the mouth. So you've got to have some sort, you know, you have to have a big enough opening, number one, on the nipple, and number two, you have to give it a good tugging to get that water to come out. So he's drinking, but it's slow going, but I haven't done a drinking wet in a while, so I'd like to see him you know, wet the diaper and all that, and just to get his drink of wet flowing through. Yeah, see, it's still not really going down, which may be why there's no pooling, because he may not really be getting that much. So I'm going to go ahead and open this a little more. And of course, realistically, I mean, I'm sure if I sat here for an hour doing this, it would really go down. Sometimes a baby takes that long to eat, you know. I mean, the videos that we do between, you know, 15 minutes and a half an hour, and some of the time you're talking and changing a doll as well. So really, it's not a whole lot of time for the baby to actually take the bottle, you know. So let's put y'all back to see me and Oscar a little bit while we chat some more on Drink and Wet. But this is a really fun feature. Not all my silicones are equipped with a drink and wet. I have 3 silicones at the moment, and Oscar has the drink and wet, and my preemie boy Ollie has the drink and wet. But my preemie girl Athena, she doesn't have a drink and wet. But that doesn't bother me at all, because I have, even if I only have one that had a drink of wet, as long as I have one, because I enjoy having it and I enjoy, just changing it up and having the experience of the drink of wet. So I am happy. Like, going forward, if I was going to get another silicone, I would definitely try to get one with a drink of wet, because it is fun and it does add value to the baby. But a lot of collectors are looking for that. You kind of find that out when you're selling a silicone doll, because you will get inquiries and collectors will ask, does the baby have a drink of wet? And that can be a make it or break it for some collectors when they're buying. They want that drink and wet. Let me know in the comments if you if that's a must have, if drink and wet is a must have when you're purchasing a silicone, or if you love the doll enough, would you, buy the doll if it didn't have a drink and wet? Curious where everyone is at these days on that. Personally, for me, overall, it would be a preference, yes, but I would not at this point in my collecting pass up a baby that didn't have a drink of wet if I really loved the doll and everything else about it. As long as which I know, Oscar's kind of a permanent fixture here. I mean, we never say never in this hobby, but, he's, for now, I have a baby that I don't plan on going anywhere that has the drink of wet. So if I was adding another silicone, again, I wouldn't not buy if the doll didn't have a drink and wet, although I would much prefer that they did, if that makes sense. Look at the bottle changing color back to the blueberry color. It gets really dark. In fact, when I got the bottle, I said, not only for the nipple style did I like it for the drink of wet, but because it was so dark, I'm like, you can't see the liquid in it, so it gives the illusion then that it's milk, because you can't tell that it's water inside because it gets so dark. But what I didn't realize is that it had the heat sensor. It's a silicone coated bottle. So if you that have been with me saw my previous video with the LED bottles, the silicone coated bottles that we can't get in the US. You have to have like a friend or somebody from the UK ship it to you, because that brand we can't get here right now in the US. However, in looking around and being on a bottle kick lately, I looked on Amazon, and they do in fact have a couple different kinds of silicone coated glass bottles. There's another one I liked. I forget the brand, the name of the brand that I did like, but being I had the LED bottles and the kind of the colors that I wanted, excuse me, I opted to go with this because it was different, the blueberry. And then how cool, I didn't read and realize that it actually had the heat sensor color changing feature to it, which is so cool. So, I'm assuming for this, for a real baby, when the bottle's warm, when it's, totally clear, and then when the bottle's cooling off, when it goes back to the color. So if you have a finicky baby that it needs to be a certain temperature or whatever, you can just see that, you know, the bottle is no longer hot. So I think that's like super, super cool. We'll keep giving this a nice tuggaroo here. I'm continuing to see bubbles. I just don't, we're going to see in a second how much. And, you know, some of them, like Oscar, needs to be a slow drinker. If it's coming out too fast and too much, and I have him too upright, it pools, it spills out of his mouth. Like, actually, it just started to spill out of his mouth when I tipped him up. So I have to let some of this go down. And now he has taken about an ounce. He's only taken, in all that, he's only taken about an ounce. You can see the color changing from the beginning of the video when it was totally clear. It's now turning blue, and it will get almost as dark as the cap. It gets dark. It's a blueberry colored, it's a dark colored bottle when it's cooled off. I think that's awesome. Fun stuff. It's pixie magic. It's a pixie bottle. No, it's totally like right up my alley for sure. Ooh, color changing. Anyway, I know I'm silly, but it's the fun of it all. So I want to make sure, because a lot of times when I lift Oscar up, he will spit some out. So it's almost like he's spitting up. So we'll set him up. So really, realistically, if I stopped right now feeding him, we'd only have an ounce of water in his, I gotta roll the sleeves on these, in his bottle. I do want to get some more in. Whoop! Now, see, I pressed on his spine, I pressed on his back, and did you all see? The silicone baby spits up. Let's see if I, now, of course, when I want him to do it, he doesn't. I felt it. I don't know if y'all saw it, but, and this is wet. Oscar, were you spitting up on mommy a bit? Oh, there came out some more. See, this is why, so another thing, and I've done this with drinking wet feedings before, I've shown you all, but another thing that's important is actually burping the baby, is moving them around, patting the back, leaning forward, leaning back. This allows all the water to flow through. Oop, he just spit up some more. See, so it's still up in here. You've got to move the baby around and lift the baby so that so gravity works and pulls it through the system. It's important. So, you know, just you sure do get a realistic experience. And you know, newborn babies are often, you know, those of you that have children know, they're all, you know, some of them can be difficult to feed, you know, difficult for them to take the bottle, you know, colicky babies, you get spit up, babies that spit up. One of my daughters was like a real spitter upper. She did that like projectile vomiting thing where like the formula, he needs a little more lubricant on this, the formula would like still be coming out her mouth, and there was a whole stream splatting on the floor, and like it's still flowing out. Like she projectile vomited really spit up, but projectiled it, the formula, and she was, you know, a colicky baby, and you know, we had to switch the formula several times to different low iron and this and that back then. I mean, she's 28 years old now. But she, you know, I mean, I didn't have a problem getting her to eat. In fact, she really loved to eat. But she, you know, definitely had tummy issues and things. And from that, I mean, down to my last child, Gabe, you know, my youngest, he, I mean, he was technically, he was premature. He was, you know, he was very tiny. Didn't have great muscle tone. He was, you know, more just tiny and weaker, and he just sucked so gently, and he didn't really care too much about getting the bottle. So it was like you really had to, you know, get him to eat. You had to, you know, rub his face and wake him and move him and shake the bottle, and you know, and of course, and he was, you know, small. You know, he went down to a little under 5 pounds in the hospital, and he was jaundiced, so we wanted him to eat, you know, we wanted to make sure he was eating. So you had to work, you know, it took like over an hour for a feeding just to get him to eat enough, a tiny little bit, a half ounce, you know. It was a lot of work to get him to take that half ounce. So, you know, this, in effect, if I wasn't making a video, if I was just kind of sitting here or relaxing or whatever, you're getting to play with the doll and have a very realistic experience with your drinking wet, because they all work differently. You got to kind of figure out the little tricks to your baby, to your doll, and see, you know, do they need a slow flow? Do they need a fast flow? Do they need to be totally on their backs, a little bit upright? You know, how do you get it to go down? All of those things are, in essence, things that you would be worrying about with a real baby. What position they like to be fed, how they eat well the best, and all that stuff. So it's just amazing and interesting, the realism. And you know, this is why these dolls are made, and artists, you know, a lot of artists offer the features in the silicone dolls of things like the drinking wet, because collectors role play. Collectors like, you know, like when you were a little girl, getting a baby that, you know, drank and wet was a big deal. I know it was for me. And now this is like the ultimate in toys, and it's adult collecting. And you know, why wouldn't we want the doll to have, you know, all those cool features? So, and then, you know, there are times that a drinking wet, an artist should test a drinking wet. They should, you know, absolutely, and I think most do. You know, once a doll is finished, they would test the drinking wet and make sure everything's working properly. But it's possible that some artists don't or didn't. And, you know, it's something that if you've bought a doll, especially if you bought the doll new from the artist, if the drink and wet system is not working, you want to contact the artist. And if the tips and tricks and whatever isn't working, if the artist asks you if you're able to see in the mouth to see, is there something clogged? Sometimes a piece of the silicone or the glue, the silpoxy that they use to secure the tube in there, maybe accidentally just, you know, got over it or clogged into it. If you're able to see, if you're able to swipe that out with your finger. If not, it's something that you'd want to address right away with an artist, so that you can send the doll back and have the artist fix the problem if you've paid for a feature of a drink and wet. If you're buying a doll on a secondhand market, and look at how much darker the bottle is getting, just noticed. Look at that. If you're buying the doll on a secondhand market, it's a question that you want to ask, especially if it's important to you. And either way, even if you don't plan on using the drinking wet, the price is going to reflect. So it's important to, and it's going to matter on the resale. So if it matters to you, you know, you should be asking. You should be asking these questions. And with the drinking wet, you can ask, does the drinking wet actually work? Have you used the drinking wet? Some collectors may say, I don't know. I've never used it. Oscar's spitting up again. Because some collectors don't use it. And if it's important to you, you can say, can you please try it, make sure it works, because it's important to me that it does. And if you are selling your silicone baby that has a drinking wet feature, it might be something that you'd like to check out, because when you say the doll has drinking wet, you know, you just want to make sure, you know, it's a working drink and wet system, because they can have problems. I think most can be fixed, and I think a lot have to do with, this is very wet. I don't have anything else, I don't think, to do with like a more inexperienced collector that's, you know, just maybe afraid to do too much, or doesn't know kind of what to do to, you know, the tips and tricks and things. I mean, I didn't know when I got my first, you know, doll that had the drink and wet system, and I'm like, it's not working. It's, you know, I filled the bottle with distilled water and warmed it up and tried, and I'm like, the doll's not taking any of it. What's the problem? And, you know, I don't remember who, but another collector said, or I looked it up and seen it on a video. I don't even remember, but, you know, then I learned about, you know, adjusting the flow on the nipple, that you have to cut the nipple and adjust the flow for your doll. And that was like, magic time. Like, oh my gosh, now I know what to do. So this bib is thoroughly soaked, and Oscar still has quite a bit, I think, that he's going to spit up here. So I am actually going to have to excuse myself out of the frame for a minute, because I don't edit, and I got to grab another cloth or something. Let's see what I have over here. I have more bibs on hand. I don't want to take forever here, so let's do this. Let's change it. And I actually put this bib to the wrong side, because it's a, you know, it's a blue bib, but I flipped it the opposite so that the terry cloth part was facing up, because I know Oscar kind of dribbles and whatever, so I wanted to make sure that the more absorbent side was facing him, which I'm going to do with this bib as well. I got a fresh bib on him. Oh, I should have cut the tags on it. I cut the tags on the other one. And I'm going to use this one just as a spit up cloth, because yeah, this happens. The silicone baby is going to may spit up some. Those of you that have been with me a really long time, you'll remember the time I had Oscar up here and my shirt was soaked. I'm actually going out tonight, so I hope. I should have changed myself. Oop. Oh, we got a whole bunch of spit up. Whole bunch is coming out as well. See, and this is something where you don't want to leave this water inside your doll. I don't know if you all can see. but his mouth is, you know, he's got water coming out. So you want to make sure that you're handling your doll and lifting them and going forward and back and stuff and making sure that you're getting everything out. Because you, buddy, are full. I think I should reserve doing drinking wets with Oscar for like live streams or something, because really I need to sit here for another, you know, half hour or so and, you know, move him around and really make sure, give him a nice squeeze, and we're getting some, and yeah, we're getting it out. But being that this is a recorded video and gonna take forever, I am going to give him a change so you can all see Oscar's wet diaper. Yes. And then I'll have to just, you know, play around with him, and this will help too, putting him on his back. Let's get fix your sleeves, buddy. Fix those sleeves. His sleeves are so long. All right. Right, Oscar? We have a diaper here for him, yeah. So, actually, let's give one more. Oh, no, we'll do that with the diaper off. Maybe you'll all get to see him make pee-pees. We got that once. And actually, he was going so much that once I turned the camera off, I recorded again an extra video for my channel membership with some more peeing. Because what doll collector doesn't want to see some fun peeing on a silicone drinking wet baby, right? So, let's see. Now, these cottery diapers work so good that sometimes I can't tell, but it really doesn't feel like there's anything in this diaper. So, we're going to have to do some work here to get Oscar's drinking wet going through, because I feel like most of it came up out of his mouth and isn't even coming out the drinking wet. It's not coming out the right end. It was coming back up the wrong end. So it's possible that, look at that tushy. Look at that tushy. It's possible, see, this diaper isn't even wet. It's possible that at this point, because Oscar is a few years old, that there is a clog somewhere in there. In which case, I'm going to have to get him flat on his back, open up a bottle that's going to flow, and really, you know, get that water going through to, you know, some nice hot water to hopefully unclog it and get it, see it where I can see it coming through, you know, the diaper, because we don't want to leave anything in there, and we want to make sure that it's flowing, you know, throughout the end that it's supposed to. Because look, see here again, this bib is soaked. I think all of what he took in stayed up, you know, in this area and didn't actually go down through the drinking wet. So I don't know how, I'll put another bib on him. I don't know how an artist would fix that, but I'm going to look into it. There's things that I am comfortable now myself doing with my dolls, with my silicone doll, and hopefully it will be something that I'm capable of fixing for little Oscar. Or it may be to the point where we're just going to get this cleared out up the way that it came in and not use his drinking wet system anymore. It may just be, you know, that he's an older doll now and it's not going to work properly and we don't want to keep, you know, putting water into him. And that may be it for little Oscar for drinking wet, which is also fine because you'll notice I don't do the drinking wets that often because it's more of a, you know, pain and getting the water set up and the alcohol in the bottle and everything's getting wet and all that stuff. So, you know, it may just be a little Ollie left with the drinking wet. But for those of you that are new collectors and getting your first silicone dolls, and it's a huge excitement to have that drinking wet, and you want it to work, and you're, you know, having little quirks and issues and stuff, I hope that this helped you out with some tips and tricks for your drinking wet. And I totally hope you all enjoyed seeing this bottle change back into a blueberry color. How cool is that? It's by Everyday Baby, and I bought it on Amazon. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Definitely leave me a comment below. Let me know all your thoughts on what you think. And make sure that you go now and smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to all. Check out my channel's exclusive membership, and there is a link in the description to follow me on Instagram to see pictures of Oscar and all the babies in my collection. I also have subscriptions on Instagram, so I have membership here on YouTube and on Instagram. Check it out. It's everything behind the scenes, and I'll probably do behind the scenes in how I work through totally fixing his drinking wet system, or, you know, emptying it and seeing what I do. So I'll be doing that all in there. So we'll see you all next time. God bless.